Today I'm going to be doing a transmission service, which is a drain and a refill on this 2007 Honda CR-V. This should be the same for all 2007 through 2011 Honda CR-Vs. This particular one is just front wheel drive, so the fluid capacity is going to be slightly less. I will put in the description links to the fluid I'm using, the torque spec, all that stuff. I'll try to include most of it in the video, but check the description for any of that stuff. It should all be included down there. So here we are under the vehicle. You do not need a lift to do this. Obviously the lift makes it a little easier. It is not a problem to do this with a floor jack and some jack stands in your driveway. This is a really good jack point in the middle here, although it might interfere slightly with you accessing and more specifically catching the fluid that comes out of the drain plug right there. But there's other points along the side here, and even the lift points back where I have the lift on this would also be excellent lifting points, but make sure you put jack stands under it if you're gonna be doing it that way. So we're gonna start out by cracking this drain plug loose, and these are usually pretty tight. I'm just gonna use a 3/8 breaker bar on it. It's a 3/8 hole, so this will go straight in it. Make sure you get it inserted good. Sometimes there's some crud in there. And then we're just gonna give it a good yank there. You could see that's tight, so I would definitely recommend, you could even use a longer breaker bar, but that got the job done. So now we're just gonna pull the plug and we're gonna let it drain. So I'm gonna be interested to see what this fluid looks like. This is an 07 with just under 200,000 miles on it, and my buddy just bought it. There's a few questionable things on it, but he got it for really cheap, and so we can definitely address some stuff, but I wanna see what this fluid looks like. So we're definitely gonna be looking at that here. And it's pretty brown, but it's not black. You can see how transparent it is right there. So this is not scary at all. I've seen much, much worse. The other thing to look at here is the drain plug to see how much crud. It's not really focusing. There we go. So we'll see how much crud is on this. That is also really good. It's really fine particles. That's normal and what you want to see. You don't want to have chunks of metal on this. But that's really impressive, actually. I was a little scared about what I might find here. And that's not bad at all. If it were really bad, I might do this process a couple times to help get as much of the old nasty fluid out of there as possible. But this is due, but not scary at all. So my buddy will be happy to hear that. So while we let this finish draining, we're just gonna clean this up good. And there's a crush washer on here that we can probably pull off. I'll link to new crush washers. And in fact, I may, if I've got the right size, I may grab one because this looks like it's been on there a while. But I really haven't had too much trouble. As long as you clean everything off so you don't have a little piece of sand or some foreign material causing an issue. When we torque this thing down to 36 foot-pounds, I don't think there's gonna be an issue with it, but I am gonna check and see if I've got a new one on hand. So we're just down to a dribble, so we're gonna reinstall this drain plug. And we've got our torque wrench set to 36, not 360. There is a point in there. So 36 foot-pounds. Almost there. There we go. We're just gonna wipe off any drips here. And then we're gonna set this down and move on to the filling process. So here we are under the hood, and in this case, it's kind of a dirty under the hood, but that's all right. If we look right down here, kind of between the battery and the air intake boot here, we've got our dipstick for the transmission. And it's important to note that there's a notch right on the side when you're pressing this in to check fluid level. Sorry about the focus there, but you want to make sure you press it firmly in to get it all the way down, and make sure you've got that notch lined up right so that it is inserted all the way down. So, but before we get to that point, we're gonna pull this out of here and we're gonna put a funnel in. I've got a long funnel here. I'll put a link in the description, but we're gonna sneak this down and put it right there in the fill tube. And I am getting a little bit of resistance with the battery cable there, so just make sure it stays in there so you don't make a big mess. So Honda calls out for their own Honda Z1 transmission fluid, and so I am going to be using Valvoline Max Life ATF. You can see right on there, Honda Acura ATF Z1, accept CVTs. This is not a CVT, so it meets the standard. So I'm going to put, I believe the capacity is around 3.6 quarts for the all-wheel drive version, and I believe it's slightly less for just the front-wheel drive version. I'm going to start by putting 3 quarts in, and we're going to see where that gets us. All right, I've got exactly 3 quarts in here, so I'm going to pull the funnel out, I'm going to put the dipstick back in, and then we're going to start the procedure to get a good read on the level. So every manufacturer seems to have their own unique way to check the level correctly, and for this era of Honda, for this vehicle specifically, what Honda says is run it until the cooling fans kick on. So we've got it up to operating temperature, but specifically run it until the cooling fans kick on. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start this thing up. I'm gonna hold my foot on the throttle at about 3,000 RPMs. That's not necessary, but it'll speed up the process. And we're gonna do that until the cooling fans kick on. And then we're gonna shut it off and wait at least 30 seconds and then check the level. Between 30 and 90 seconds after we've shut it off, we're gonna check the level on the dipstick, and it needs to be between the 2 dots. We're shooting for the top because that means it's topped off all the way. So run it until the cooling fans kick on, shut it off, wait 30 seconds, pull the dipstick, check the level. All right, the cooling fans kicked on. I shut it off. I've waited 30 seconds, and now we're gonna pull the dipstick out here. We're gonna wipe it off good, and then making sure to line the notch up. We're gonna fish it back in here, press it firmly down all the way, pull it back out again, and it looks like we are, I don't know if you can tell or not, but we're a tad below the lowest mark. So I'm gonna put maybe a pint in, and we'll see where that gets us. Okay, it's a little hard to tell because I can see some fluid up a little ways beyond, but it looks like we're just a hair below the top mark there. So we're gonna call that good. We could add, another ounce of fluid, but we're well within the specs, which is just simply between the dots. So the end result for this front wheel drive CR-V turned out to be almost exactly 3.5 quarts. So maybe slightly more on an all-wheel drive one, but on this one it was 3.5 quarts. So we're gonna put the dipstick tube back in here, and we are good to go. I would recommend doing this probably every 30 to 50,000 miles, but you can kind of base it on your results. If you're seeing that your fluid is really dark with doing it every 50,000 miles, then I would shorten that interval and do it maybe every 30,000 miles. If every 30,000 miles your fluid's looking really clean, then I'd lengthen that out to maybe every 50,000 miles. So there again, I've linked everything in the description that I've used. This is a pretty short list of stuff. You need a ratchet, a torque wrench, maybe a new crush washer, a gallon of fluid will be plenty, and then a funnel. And you can do this service easily at home in your driveway. Thank you for watching.